I have a issue with active recall and spaced repetition. Memorization started off as a good intention to ace tests.
Too much of a good thing is never good.
Remnote is a tool that is so great.
But before memorizing,
there is a secret step before active recall and spaced repetition. Good morning. Are you having a hard time studying? Let's get the day started. And welcome back, I'm Priscilla. My channel is tiny, but I'm still contributing to this productivity study tool world. Let's bring you guys over here. 3, 2, 1. I sound so serious right now. I should have some improvisation and just crack my voice.
Our traditions, story time.
In biochemistry, the infamous Krebs cycle, gluconeogenesis, fatty acid metabolism. I hate memorizing the processes of chemical reactions, but I love learning how the body works. Isn't that very contradictory? I wish I could just bang my head on textbook as a studying technique, and those information can magically go into my brain. This book is called Atlas of Human Body. There are so many types of studying techniques out there. People just rewatch their lectures, independent studies, group studies. So I study with imaginary friends. And fun to around. Get real, okay? Be rational, please. Do flashcards or just stay up all night before your exam and somehow cram in all those knowledges. There's so many choices out there that I don't even know which one to follow.
I don't know this. I do not know this one.
According to this book, make it sting.
I tried the flashcards and taking notes like every other student does. For the final exam, I was still not confident with how I understand gluconeogenesis and all other chemical reactions. Although I did pass that subject, I did not score a high mark on it. If you ask me what is gluconeogenesis now, I wouldn't know.
I was rewarded with a grade for regurgitation and memorization. I might understood make it stick studying techniques out of context. Deep down, I know I cannot escape studying, but I'm scared of getting punished for not getting a good grade and trying new things.
During my gap year, I decided to venture my life into the cognitive science of learning. This is something very crazy. Our mind is an organ that is in our skull and I can't see. How can I study it? Just patting on my head because I love my brain so much. It is how I learn. It is what's going on inside my head that is more important than the techniques and tips. First, let's define some definitions. Do you know that studying and learning are actually two different things? Learning is the cognitive process of fitting a new piece of information in your mind. Our mind has many mental representations of the world around us. When I move to a new campus, I will need to encode the campus map into my mental representation so we can walk on autopilot to the classroom. That is learning. And second, studying is the act of learning. Banging on a textbook is a studying technique, and the cognitive process of memorizing textbook's name will be learning. It is those studying techniques that determine what cognitive process of learning we use. So to illustrate the concepts of learning and studying further, we are going to have some cognitive science 101. Try to maximize our enjoyability of studying. This is crucial to understand because we will know how to adjust our learning system according to this model. There is a theory called information processing theory. Think of your brain as a supercomputer. You input information through one side, and there are 3 parts of the brain. Those 3 processes are sensory memory, working memory, and long-term memory. Sensory memory is where the memory stays in your eyes, nose, ears, and mouth. You're hearing my videos sound wave and light wave by watching it. If you don't think about it further, it will be forgotten in around 0.5 to 3 seconds. If we apply effort to retain the knowledge in the sensory memory, it will move to the working memory. The working memory is where your mind processes and reasons information from the sensory memory,
or from long-term memory when you are reviewing.
This part holds around 7 to 9 bits of information and will be forgotten around 5 to 15 seconds if it is not further processed.
The best analogy for the working memory is a high school hallway. I have to walk through the hallway to get through other classrooms. But except in the brain, the classroom compartments are not isolated, but they are interconnected.
With more attention and cognitive effort in the working memory, the information will be stored in the long-term memory. It's called encoding. Long-term memory is like the storage of the computer. Capacity here is infinite, and the duration of storage is from hours to years. In the long-term memory, there are many unconscious things that are happening. The mind will fit the new information into the bookshelf of mental models. We want to be able to retrieve the information from the long-term memory when we are presented with a problem at hand. So retrieval is where active recall and spaced repetition comes in. It fights against the Ebbinghaus forgetting curve. Active recall and spaced repetition should be skills when we are revising those information. But not a lot of people have been talking about this. What about encoding the other way around? Working memory to long-term memory. If we don't have proper encoding techniques, when using active recall and spaced repetition, we'll just be trying to scoop out water in a bucket that has holes. If we did not activate those strong cognitive pathways for learning and encoding, how can we strengthen them through active recall and spaced repetition? I now travel back in time and tell myself in studying biochemistry. So what's after active recall and spaced repetition? So cognitive load is your brain power and the amount of information you process once with your working memory. We want to increase cognitive load because as cognitive load increases, the quality of learning will increase, but only up to a certain point. Just like the law of diminishing returns. Oh, note-taking is great, but Remnote is just a tool. Given ordinary people ordinary tools with the correct method and understanding, they can design and create extraordinary things. Let's say I'm traveling back to 2 years ago to teach myself gluconeogenesis. The first step is that I would slap myself and try to wake myself up. Wake up! From learning cognitive neuroscience, this type of study technique is passive learning. The opposite of passive learning is active learning. To practice this, we will introduce two concepts here. First is higher order thinking. Let me introduce a little pyramid. It is called Bloom taxonomy. In here we have understanding and memorizing at the bottom, and this is known as lower level of thinking. We want to move up the pyramid, which are evaluating, creating, and analyzing. And yes, I am surprised by this taxonomy too. Remembering and understanding is actually lower orders of learning because understanding and memorizing is in isolation. And the second one is relational thinking.
This is from the structure of observed learning taxonomy.
It means that we compare and contrast ideas to the new thing that we're learning now. This strengthens the cognitive pathways, and we will know which one caused which one and which relationship is more important. The goal here is to find the desired difficulty. That means that it is a sweet spot, not too hard or not too easy.
It's not the failure that's desirable, it's the dauntless effort despite the risks, the discovery of what works and what doesn't that sometimes only failure can reveal.
When I first started learning this lecture of gluconeogenesis, I have no idea where my mind is going to guide me. It is the excitement of how the passion of learning and jumping, relational, and higher order thinking will guide me to. The feeling of desired difficulty can be a little bit scary at first because with practicing higher order thinking and increasing your cognitive load, we will feel the efficiency in 3 to 4 months. And if you have understood the importance of encoding, please bang that like button and help this video to spread to other students like you and me who are struggling learning about learning.
Trying to solve a problem before being taught the solution leads to better learning.
After introducing the concepts, we're gonna start a Remnote document of learning Krebs cycle, glycolysis, and all those things. I will review the previous lecture about what biochemistry is using the portal technique. This means that each note can exist in multiple places and reference them. With this portal, a bidirectional linking can be established with the document. After I tag the title of the note here, it will appear in the bottom of the tag. This is the reference section. And as my knowledge base grows with biochemistry, I can even filter my notes through the filter function. This might be something handy for my future self to organize those relational thinking. With this bidirectional linking function, we can begin to build the mental representation of biochemistry. So the first definition I review is that biochemistry is the study of chemical reactions in a living organism. And then breaking it down, we have metabolism. Metabolism is the reactions of how the body utilizes food that we have eaten. And this is further broken down into catabolism and anabolism. Catabolism is the process of breaking down food, and anabolism is building up energy from raw material in the body, such as carbs, protein, and lipids. And let's walk through an example together. When I first started learning this lecture of gluconeogenesis, I have no idea where my mind is going to guide me. I will try to let you to take a peek into my brain and understand my thinking process. How I explain and increasing our cognitive load together, we will grow as an internet family.
Instead of finding the answer straight up.
What gluconeogenesis is, the science world term. Many things are based on prefixes and suffixes. I have accumulated a word bank of prefixes and suffixes. In this case, gluconeogenesis can be broken into gluco, neo, and genesis. Gluco means this is the sugar that the body wants. The second part is neo, mean new. And then genesis means create. It's like glucose new created. After I searched up the definition, this totally makes sense. Gluconeogenesis means creating glucose from non-carbohydrates, such as lipids and proteins. After I have broken down my knowledge, everything has made sense, and this concept fits into my understanding of prefixes and suffixes. After linguistics, we will switch between higher order thinking and relational thinking intertwinedly when I go through the process of putting this concept furthermore into other subjects of my mental representation. So in this case, I will ask myself, if I'm following a low-carb diet, my body won't have enough glucose to create ATP. If for you guys who don't know, ATP is the energy currency in the biological world. In this case, my body is lacking glucose. It will activate the process of gluconeogenesis, and I might lose some muscle mass and protein because the body needs glucose to sustain my life. Next one, try to relate gluconeogenesis with what I have previously learned in glycolysis. In fact, they are the complete opposite. I will compare and contrast the chemical products and energy released.
The four differences of gluconeogenesis and glycolysis are the location of reaction, the final reactant and products are reversed, and there are 4 reactions unique to gluconeogenesis. Those 4 will be critical.
Since I have understand and memorized the process of glycolysis, I won't have to memorize it again for gluconeogenesis. Although I was tempted to be isolated in this concept and dive deep into understanding of what gluconeogenesis is on its own before mindlessly copying, I would have went through this lengthy higher order of thinking to understand what is the true information that I need for my personal learning and understanding. So this is where PDF annotation comes in handy. So by how to add a source here, I can click on the source button and upload a PDF of biochemistry textbook and use the PDF annotation function to grab pictures and highlights using the PDF function. I can use the command click drag function on the PDF to copy the textbook photo of the chemical reactions of gluconeogenesis and glycolysis into my notes. The sequential flashcard might be very good for this. I can break down each tiny steps and facts of the chemical process.
This part is purely for memorization for the test because biochemistry tests love to ask us enzyme names, reactants, and products. The attitude here is owning your learning and not just studying for a test.
And after this lecture have finished, I'll use the template function in Remnote to summarize and relate some of the knowledges.
The summary of learning points is very useful when it comes to the final exam. My future self will know how much I need to review on this topic.
Through this method, there will be less memorizing required. I will try to envision what the teacher might test us on and then memorize those little chemical reactions after I have built this whole understanding. It will be a lot easier because I have built both models and representation of biochemistry already. Taking notes with Remnote verbalize my thinking processes and make it a reality in this video. Because this calling is so strong that I want to help other students like me who thought studying was very, very boring. I have the tools that I need, which is Remnote, a computer, and our powerful brain. And most important thing is the passion for a lifelong learning. This is what drove me to share this whole example with you. And I must act upon this urge and passion because I know this is the only opportunity I have to share this grateful message and passion to you guys. When I get to the learning at the end and understanding gluconeogenesis, I look back on my thinking process and this is how everything has notes to get, and sometimes this just takes me or you to say yes to an opportunity to try something new, like trying those encoding skills. Those processes might be very extra at first on other people and energy wasting, and you know what truly matters to you? When you look at your final grade report, I'm like, yes, I did it. If you're interested in more of learning cognitive processes, is through this video on how I take notes. Instead of processing knowledge at home, I process information on point during the lecture when things are delivered to me. Be ordinary, mindful, and curiously fearless, and I'll see you guys next time. Have fun studying and good luck with our grades. It is not that boring to study, trust me.